Hello and welcome to Business Sense. I'm Ralph Rivas. For today's episode, we're going to talk about the labor situation in the Philippines amid the pandemic. Uh, Globally, we've been seeing the so-called Great Resignation, where exhausted people are quitting their jobs, just looking for state subsidies and assistance amid the coronavirus pandemic. But are we seeing the same trend here in the Philippines? Well, it seems that from the figures, it's really hard to see at this point. But for today's episode, we have AMZ AllStars CEO Erick Rodriguez to discuss that and more. So, Erick, thanks so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you, Ralph, for having me. Thank you, Rappler.
Now, before we get right into it, tell us a little bit about AMZ AllStars. What do you guys do?
Yeah, happy to. AMZ AllStars, we're a fast-growing e-commerce company, originally created March 2019. We started with one headcount, grew through the pandemic, which was quite the journey. And today we're proud to say we're just over 300 headcount, and we just succeeded in getting our second year of accreditation of Great Place to Work. We offer customer support, brand management, finance, overall end-to-end management of large e-commerce brands. As everyone knows, e-commerce has really been booming, and this has been accelerated during the pandemic and people shopping from home. The largest marketplace being Amazon US marketplace. And so we support a lot of the needs of small, medium, and large enterprises who need that brand management, that customer support. And we've been able to ride that wave and provide a lot of employment opportunities along the way to the Filipinos.
Okay, now we'll go right back into the e-commerce a little bit, but I want to talk about trends in the labor market, and I'm a little skeptical about the Great Resignation being the trend here in the Philippines because abroad it's the trend, but here are you also seeing that?
Fair question. Globally, there's different trends occurring. In the West, we're seeing, a hyper competitive workforce, especially in some sectors like tech, where it is more important than ever that they have work-life balance and very competitive benchmark benefits. You are seeing a great resignation in the West, right? People taking time off work or reduced hours or switching to better work-life balance employment opportunities. But in the Philippines, it's different, right? And so let me speak about that, right? According to the PSA, the Philippine statistics, there is 7 million Filipinos that are underemployed, right? And so in the Philippines, we see underemployment. We see a trend of people creating multiple streams of income, whether that be selling goods online, whether it be Facebook Marketplace, Instagram, creating small businesses. Filipinos are very entrepreneurial, and so they are creating more and more ways to make money and not just be reliant on one employment opportunity. And so these traditional work opportunities are having more competition from untraditional opportunities, whether that's becoming an entrepreneur or doing play to earn games, which is really rising popularity as we all know, Axie Infinity.
Hmm. Now, of course, people are taking up more work just to make ends meet, but people are bound to be exhausted as well. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, right now we're living in a day and age where there is a lack of separation between work and non-work. In the past, you would commute to the office, you'd spend your 8+ hours at the office, you'd commute back, unwind, decharge. Uh, You'd have that separation. Now we've been 2+ years working from home, all of us, or the grand majority of us, and there's going to be higher amounts of burnouts, and that's what the statistics are saying. And so that's why for some, uh, they're becoming more particular about the companies they choose, the values that they have, how much they value that work-life balance. I'm always at AMZ All Stars really pushing the staff about them being very protective and conscientious of what are they doing to recharge, to unwind. In the middle of February, we're actually going to have a required 5 days off where the entire company will take a week off because we just want people to unwind And sometimes it's the hard workers, the type A folks, they don't want to take that break, but you really, really need to.
Mm. Now, how would you describe the typical Filipino job seeker at this point? What do they want? What income do they want? I mean, I mean, we have various needs, but can you describe to us, in the general sense, what the typical Filipino job seeker is looking for?
Sure, happy to. Well, the reason why that's a multi-pronged answer is because there's different job sectors. You have to answer it per the job sector, right? What you might see in retail might be very different from what you see in a BPO. Although we don't like to identify ourselves as a BPO, we are a BPO in the general sense. And for BPO, people want work from home, they want flexible hours, they want increased benefits. If people are going to pursue traditional employment opportunities versus untraditional, healthcare and healthcare for their dependents matter more than ever, right? We just announced uh, extended enhanced HMO benefits. So we've increased our HMO to 800,000 maximum benefit limit for the primary. We expanded it to two dependents from day one. So I encourage, other companies need to think about this as well. The ones who can afford to do this, because it's going to be on the HMO, taking care of the family, those dependents. That's what's going to retain your staff. And also the values, work-life balance, all these things really, really matter because Filipinos are becoming very particular and sensitive on burnout and what they're looking for. And right now, in my opinion, it is for the competitive, uh, talented staff. It's a very competitive marketplace. Our staff have plethora of opportunities to choose from, right? And so we have to do everything we can to retain them.
Hmm. Now, all those things that you mentioned, actually, I think that Filipino job seekers have been looking for that even before the pandemic. But with the impact of the pandemic, will companies grant these wishes, especially with the rising cost?
They have to, right? The first step, which I think many companies have already taken, was uh, either announcing flexible work from home or permanent work from home. I know we can admit that initially at the beginning of the pandemic, we were dragging our feet announcing extensions and extensions until we finally, about a year ago, just announced, okay, it's going to be permanent work from home. We had to do this to stay competitive because others were already doing this, and so um, this will be unique and separate based on industry. But for uh, jobs that are, you know, behind a computer, as much as possible, they need to adapt, send equipment remote, empower their staff to be productive while remote. We've even invested in artificial intelligence noise canceling so that our staff could work productively and eliminate some of that background noise that we all incur when we're working from home.
Wait, tell us about that. What is AI noise canceling? That's the first time I've heard of that.
So AI being artificial intelligence, right? And so one huge challenge for folks who work from home is going to be the distractions and the noise. And so companies need to invest in good uh, you know, equipment, whether that be over-the-ear headphones that already have innate hardware that's noise canceling, or software that supports that. Right? We've invested in. I suppose I'll plug what it is, but it's called CRISP, KRISP, and for the companies who need it, I recommend it. And it's an artificial intelligence noise canceling software. So whether it be the occasional sound of a chicken or a family member or construction or whatever it might be, it helps with muffling out or eliminating all that noise. And so, that's one step that needs to be taken. The other step is, empowering the staff with a sense of being productive remote, right? And so if they don't have, you may need to send desk, chair, of course, 100% computer, but you need to make people feel productive remote. And it's well worth investing in all of that.
Okay, okay. That's so funny because I think that's a common problem, especially in the call center or BPO industry, where various videos on TikTok and YouTube have been going viral because of dogs, and chickens, and all that. But uh, I want to talk about AMZ AllStars because you were established in 2019. So I assume that growth had to happen around 2020, correct? Amid the pandemic. So how did you guys grow despite all the lockdowns and the infections, all that?
That was a challenge. I don't think we get enough recognition, and I applaud all those companies who either were founded or were attempting to grow aggressively during the pandemic. I pat you on the back and I applaud you because I recognize how hard it was firsthand. Right, we were fortunate enough that we started at least a couple quarters prior to the pandemic, rolling out. So we had that in-person time to build foundation. But when the pandemic started to begin, right, we quickly began to, as leadership, monitor the statistics um, on the daily COVID cases in the Philippines to see how it's beginning to affect us, right? And we began to make business continuity plans, right? How are we going to send our staff remote, empower them to be productive? One thing we did really quick right away was we eliminated the work from office experience for pretty much everyone except for trainees. And so during the beginning of the pandemic, we would have only the least amount of time as possible at the office. And we would do things like you have to get an RT-PCR test paid by the company prior to showing up. We would keep them in a bubble by having our own vans, social distancing, bringing them to the office. And we would keep the training classes to very small. So we'd have, let's say, a 12-person class in like a 30-seater office, which is not cheap. It was very costly to do, but we did this just to train people in person to build that sense of camaraderie and belonging to the company before we then sent them off remote. And so we did that for a couple quarters, and we throughout that whole time had zero COVID cases at the office, and so we were very fortunate, and the protocols we followed worked. And then for the past few quarters, we've just had a 100% remote training experience because especially as the latest virus variant came out, there's no way we could have an in-person at all experience. And so now we've continued to adapt, and that's what every company has to do is continually adapt and pivot. Otherwise, um, they won't grow and grow with the times.
Okay, so both a lot of companies have been saying they are cautiously optimistic this 2022. Uh, I mean, it's still hard to imagine that we're going back to the offices and flexible working arrangements are probably going to stay. Hopefully, and hopefully up until this year. I really want to go back to the office by the last quarter of this year, hopefully, or even next year. Now, with that situation, how do you keep people motivated to work and give them this sense of purpose without meeting them physically?
That's so critical because people talk about how great it is to work from home and have, let's say, a freelance style job. But what people don't talk about is there is drastically less sense of belonging and ownership for these style of employment relationships, right? If you don't build that sense of camaraderie at the beginning and continue that and foster that, you're going to have higher attrition rates. People are not going to really carry the brand on their back and own it and act like a stakeholder. And so that's why we always have that multi-week training to build that camaraderie with a small pocket of staff. So they have that cohort, and then they have a support of one, if not two, training instructors. And then throughout, they have an assigned mentor. They have their cohort, And we also have a virtual engagement committee. And so we'll have, whether it be games on Zoom on a regular basis, we'll have our town halls. You need to over communicate and keep the staff very engaged and informed when remote, right? And so you might want to increase the frequency of the touch bases with, whether it be the managers or the town halls, and surveying. You must survey the temperament of the staff and adapt based on what the surveys say. If the surveys say that people are feeling unattached to the brand or they're feeling burnout, you need to adapt to that. You have to listen to it, otherwise you'll lose your competitive workforce.
Mm. Now, yeah, AMZ AllStars is an e-commerce company. So tell us about the trends. Any exciting figures that you see will rise even further in the coming years?
Well, we focus a lot on the Amazon marketplace, right? But in 2019, it was about 339 billion gross sales, and in 2020, it jumped to 475 billion. 2021 numbers are still, being closed out, but that's astronomical growth. We all know that e-commerce is here to stay. People enjoy shopping online, the convenience. Um, the one, the reason why we've picked e-commerce is not just because we see it as here to stay and continuing to grow, but also for our staff, both our employed workforce and people who are out there in the labor force. We really encourage all of you to be very attentive to what are the trending in demand skill sets, right? There are always the hot, keywords like, oh, being a developer or an engineer, but you need to stay in tune with what is in demand, whether that be crypto or e-commerce, et cetera, and stay well equipped, because it's only by staying in tune with what is in demand for skills that you'll get the best of opportunities.
So you mentioned crypto. Astronomical growth amid the pandemic. There's crypto, there's NFTs, and of course the blockchain. Uh, any what's the future of those? What's the future of crypto and NFTs and in relation to e-commerce?
They go hand in hand, right? So, part of it is the continuation of the competition between traditional employment opportunities and untraditional, right? You see people falling off the workforce to become their own boss, to have those multiple streams of income, selling goods online, or trading on crypto, or playing play to earn games. The Philippine population is the highest demographic on Axie Infinity. I think it's like 43% or more of the whole population of Axie Infinity users are Filipinos, right? Um, so in terms of crypto, and it's here to stay. Yes, it's volatile, goes up and down. Right now, we had a correction from December to this early February. It's declined, but you know the adoption takes time, and the long-term outlook is strong, and people will continue to make investments and to create companies that support that infrastructure that's being built of the blockchain, right? And that will be the e-commerce of tomorrow for those who create blockchain companies or services that are supporting that booming industry or whatever it is the next booming industry. That's how you stay relevant and in demand.
Hmm. Now, I want to talk about you and your learnings amid the pandemic. What did you learn, and any silver linings that you're seeing right now? And what's your leadership style?
Yeah, fair question. Well, I learned a lot, right? Because I've never had the opportunity to, have to grow a team as quickly as what we had to. Oftentimes, we were adding 20 staff every 6 weeks while remote. Imagine trying to train, onboard, maintain productivity and quality standards when you're adding 20 new hires every 6 weeks while remote. That's and all while trying to maintain camaraderie, sense of belonging, the brand. It's very, very difficult. And so the leaders, we had to adapt to that, learn how to have a fast growing company and a remote one at that. And I think there's just so, I think that would be an interview on itself of how much we've learned because of that. But, and I've hit on it before, but over communicating, staying in tune with the staff, using surveying to really check the sentiment and make continuous pivots based on what the people are telling you. That is so important. That's probably my biggest takeaway for remote employers is the usage of regular surveying to keep a temp check on the staff.
Now, what's your tip for other business leaders? How do you stay sane amid all this chaos? Uh, how do you unwind? What's your best advice to uh, uh, to fellow CEOs and other C-level executives?
I've had to learn this myself, right? I recently, personally began to experience for the first time a little bit of insomnia. I may have some standards for my staff where I'm like, look, you guys need to have work-life balance, but sometimes we, as the owner or the leaders, we will overwork ourselves and won't hold ourselves to those same work-life balance standards. And so things I've had to learn to be strict with is work cutoff time, right? Work hard for a set of hours and then be strict about I stop working at this time. I'm gonna take my break, I'm gonna unwind, especially at night. You really cannot be working up until the minute you're gonna sleep because that's just gonna feed into insomnia, which um, for us stay-at-home workers, late night owls, we're gonna experience a little bit of insomnia if we don't have that respect for the cutoff time when we stop working and the work-life balance. So I've learned blue light glasses, no screens 1 hour prior, relaxing. I've even tried picking up yoga to better unwind and relax.
Okay, I too am guilty of that. I work really late. I also need to learn to stop working, I suppose. And yeah, best of luck to AMZ AllStars and to everyone, to your workers. And I really hope that this pandemic will bring out the best of us. And on that note, thanks so much, Eric Rodriguez, CEO of AMZ AllStars. And I'm Ralph Rivas. This has been another episode of Business Sense. Thanks for watching.